Just wondering, if you're a Trump legal representative, attorney or lawyer, do you get a special bonus for losing? Because it would appear that is the corridor. Once you start representing a former guy legally, you find yourself in. He's just lost his appeal that the president is above prosecution. Nope, no immunity for former guy. There you go, another losing legal case.
He just can't help himself. The ranting and raving, chaos follows him, and he's getting older.
We will restore on this planet peace through earth.
Running to settle old scores. It's about him, not you.
Nikki Haley took on the establishment in Colombia, then took on the world's dictators. A conservative, a patriot, who knows we're blessed to live in America.
I'm Nikki Haley, and I approve this message.
But we are here today to authoritatively express that President Trump did not commit an insurrection, and we believe Congress has a unique role in making that declaration. It's not the job of the states, and especially not the job of some bureaucrats in Colorado, to make this assessment and interfere with the rights of voters to cast their vote for the candidate of their choice. The very experts who often get on television and talk about securing democracy seem to be the first to want to then remove a candidate from the ballot because they are afraid that he is too popular. We have 63 co-sponsors to the resolution that Ms. Stefanik and I will be filing today to express the sense of Congress that President Trump did not commit an insurrection. I want to express my gratitude to Senator Vance for filing the companion legislation over in the Senate. And now is time for members of the House and Senate to show where they stand on this question. We and the former president welcome and expect many more co-sponsors in the coming days and look forward to a floor vote. And now I'd like to recognize my co-lead on this project, our terrific Republican Conference Chair, Elise Stefanik.
Structure of our government. Unprecedented assault on the structure of our government. That's really harsh language by this panel. And again, it's, Judge Henderson is on the panel. She's a leading conservative jurist. To say that, I think, is really remarkable. But here's, I think, the more important thing just practically, the procedural piece. The court did something really smart. They said, Trump, you got to go to the U.S. Supreme Court by Monday. Otherwise, this case is going back to Judge Chutkan. He's going to run to the Supreme Court. And my gut is, given the thoroughness and well-reasoning of this opinion and the kind of ludicrous claim that Trump's advanced on the other, that he's absolutely immune from all criminal laws, I don't think the U.S. Supreme Court's going to take this. I mean, they certainly could. They often take executive power cases. But if I had to put betting money on it, I don't think it's close right now. And I think the Supreme Court says no. This goes back to Judge Chutkan. And then she has the question, how much time is she going to give Donald Trump to prepare for his criminal trial for being an insurrectionist?
So just to be clear, if the Supreme Court doesn't take up this case, how quickly could we learn that?
I think we could learn it in a couple of weeks. So basically, if you think Trump files his papers at the U.S. Supreme Court on the 12th, I think the government would be given by the Supreme Court a few days to respond. I don't think it requires many. And even if the court gave them many, I suspect Jack Smith will take fewer. And this could be teed up for a U.S. Supreme Court decision over whether to take the case by the end of February, maybe even a little bit earlier. And as I suspect, the court will say, we're not going to take the case. It goes to Judge Chutkan. She could give Trump a few weeks to prepare for trial. And depending on other court cases involving Donald Trump and his other litigation schedule, we could be seeing a trial of former President Trump for insurrection in the spring.
Neil Katyal, thank you. I know you got to jump, but everybody else stay with me. Von Hilliard, I understand you.
I asked you a yes or no question. Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is no.
My answer is qualified yes.
A president has to have immunity. And the other thing is I did nothing wrong.
All right, we have major breaking news. A federal appeals court in Washington, D.C., a panel has just issued the ruling on whether Donald Trump can be immune from being prosecuted for the actions he took on January 6th. Let's get right to Paula Reed, who's been looking through this ruling. What are you seeing, Paula?
Well, John, as expected, the D.C. Appeals Court has ruled that former President Trump does not enjoy presidential immunity that would shield him from the federal election subversion case. Now, it has taken about a month to get to this decision, but it was pretty clear during the oral arguments in early January that judges appeared unlikely to agree with Trump's lawyers that he should be shielded by presidential immunity because some of the things he allegedly did occurred while he was still president. His lawyers face really tough questions about whether there were any limitations on their theory of executive power. But, John, I want to read you one quote from this decision. They said, quote, this is a 3-judge panel, so this is an appeals court. They said, quote, for the purpose of this criminal case, former President Trump has become citizen Trump, with all of the defenses of any other criminal defendant.
And others of our colleagues have asked me repeatedly, what is taking the Court of Appeals so long, given that they granted expedited review? And my prediction was all 3 of these judges, who had somewhat different approaches during the oral argument, were trying to figure out a way to come together and issue what's known as a per curiam decision. That's not only a unanimous decision of the court, but it's one that's unsigned by any one particular judge. We've seen this happen before in appeals involving former President Trump, namely in the 11th Circuit, when Judge Aileen Cannon appointed a special master after the Mar-a-Lago raid. 3 judges of the 11th Circuit, one of whom is a very well-known conservative judge, the other 2 of whom are Trump nominees, issued a per curiam decision saying there was no legal basis to appoint that special master. And indeed, here on page 2, you see Judges Henderson, who's a George H.W. Bush nominee, Judges Childs and Pan, both nominees of this president, President Biden, are filing an opinion for the court per curiam, unsigned by any one of them and unanimous with all 3 of them.
Yeah, I imagine they will come back with some of the same arguments that we heard during the trial, which is that the Trump properties.
You know, the president has had kind of loss after loss. You know, he lost the E. Jean Carroll case, and he's lost this case. We learned earlier this week that, you know, $50 million of donated money has been spent on his defenses. And as you point out, Scott, this case is we haven't even started really with this case. Yet, you know, I expect an email is going to be going out.
Fundraiser.
If it hasn't already, appealing to donors for more support. You know, can we expect, though this seems like a really clear loss, but can we expect the former president to be using this as part of his campaign, as he has with every other case?
If past his prologue, absolutely. Not only is it a fundraising tool, it's proven to be a very effective fundraising tool. But here's the bottom line. I don't think people have a proper appreciation for the size and scope of what this trial would be, the spectacle it would be. Unlike those cases in New York, those civil cases, he can't come and go as he pleases. He's a criminal defendant. He would have to be here in the court every day for weeks at a time. That in itself is a spectacle. What's more, this case with tethers to January 6th and efforts to overturn the election is the case with which Americans are most familiar. This is not an obscure classified records case, or it doesn't involve hush money or civil law. This involves January 6th and the efforts to subvert an election, things people watched on live television. It has the potential for jaw-dropping, visceral moments. And it's going to play out over the course of weeks, not days. It's going to shutter much of the nation's capital for security reasons. It's going to be a true spectacle. And this appeals court ruling sets the table for it, you know, actually happening before the election, which was in question during these appeals.
Bring in congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane, who is outside the federal courthouse here in D.C. Scott, good morning.
Major, good morning to you. We waited weeks for this ruling to come down from this 3-judge panel at the D.C. Court of Appeals, and they have rejected unequivocally Donald Trump's argument he is immune from prosecution in the 2020 election conspiracy case on the basis of presidential immunity. Let me read one key excerpt from this 50-plus page ruling. It says, for the purpose of this criminal case, former President Trump has become citizen Trump, with all of the defenses of any other criminal defendant. Any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution. That's in line with what the district court ruled when Judge Tanya Chutkan rejected this argument, saying Donald Trump now is any other criminal defendant and has no special privileges. This ruling raises the prospect, if not the likelihood, Major, the trial date for Donald Trump in this election subversion case goes back on the calendar as early as this spring. There was a March 4th trial date that existed until last week. The judge, waiting on this ruling, took the case off the calendar. It could now potentially go back on, and soon.